And I remember getting punched in the leg. And I was like looking around as I'm like shooting, like bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, I think I just got punched in the leg. And I like look down with my nods and I'm like trying to look this way, like focusing them and like rubbing my hand here. And it just feels like I pissed my pants. And I go to the doc and I'm like, Doc, am I crazy or did I just get hit in the leg? And he's like this and he's like, you're not crazy. Name's Alex Aguilar. I served in the U.S. Army for 6 years in 2011 to 2017 and got out as a sergeant. So I'm originally from the Los Angeles area, grew up in LA my whole life. I had a very stereotypical like American childhood. Growing up, imagine like American Pie. Like that was literally my life. It was very like friends and good times and sports and dating, like everything you imagine like that you want a typical like American youth I had. My parents were divorced when I was young, but I was so young that to me, it was just normal to spend the weeks with my mom and the weekends at my dad's house. And that was just totally normal. And I was really blessed, me and my brother, that like there was never a discrepancy between my mom and dad on like how to raise us or that we were loved or cared for, any of that. Like their divorce was their divorce, but it didn't affect us at all. Like I was still very much loved by my mom, by my dad, all that. And growing up, both my parents actually ended up remarrying. They are such good friends that like it sounds like it's out of a movie because it's fake, but it's like my mom is actually, my dad had a kid with my stepmom, and my mom is actually my half-brother's godmother because we're all still so close, like a giant blended family. So I'm actually very lucky that I have my mom and my stepdad, and then I have my dad and my stepmom, who may be like diametrically opposite, but are so like still loving and caring for me, my brothers. Everything growing up, like I can't think of like really negative things that happened to me because I was very privileged growing up as far as the opportunity to go to Catholic school. My parents made sure I played sports my whole life, got a good education, always surrounded by like people in positive environments, you know, never in negative environments that really like dragged me down or would affect me growing up or making bad choices. I mean, I did like the normal hell raising that everyone would do as teenagers and, you know, did some, you know, egging houses or things like that. All your TPing house, all the normal stuff that kids do, I did. Never like found myself in really negative circumstances. And I'm pretty lucky and blessed to have like the youth I had growing up and the friends and the experiences. I feel like a lot of people that join the military don't actually have that like really positive youth. So I look back on my youth and I always tell people like I'm super lucky and blessed to have the life I had, you know, joining the military and all the experiences that I was able to go through. So when I was a kid, Predator was my favorite movie. I loved it I could quote the whole movie today. When I was a kid, all the action stars were these yoked up army guys. Like you had Rambo and Predator and Commando, and these were all the movies I grew up on. So to me, like being in the military or serving like that, like I just viewed it as awesome. Like that was just something like, man, that's awesome. I want to do that one day. And I had actually gone and talked to a recruiter in high school. I was going to join out of high school. And I talked it over with my parents, and then I made the decision with them. I was like, all right, I'll give college a try first. I'll try college while I'm young and see. It was just something I always wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like it was very important to me to be a soldier at some point. I thought it's like the most rewarding thing you could be because of how I was shaped all, you know, growing up. And my heroes at the time were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and these action stars. So that's what I wanted to be. So I promised my parents I'd try college. So I went to CSUN for a year, and I spent more time partying with friends than ever going to class. So I like to say I was enrolled in college, but I never went to college. So I just spent that year partying. It was like, okay, well, I'll move back. I moved back home with my parents, with my mom, and I was going to school then for EMT because I was like, I'm going to be a firefighter then. And in the back of my head, I'd still always still wanted to join the military, just had never gotten around to it. And then finally, I'm like 20 years old, 21, dropping out of school again, and it like dawns on me that I'm that guy who I had this great experience. Here I am, peaked in high school, and now I'm a 21-year-old loser living back in my mom's basement with no job and dropping out of school again. And it was finally like that epiphany of like, okay, I think I wanted to join the military. I need to do this now. I'm wasting time like doing nothing with my life. And I never wanted to be that guy. Like I felt like a total loser, and it was like this is the right time. This is it. And a guy that worked with my stepdad, he was actually in the big army for several years early on in the GWAT. And one day he came and picked me up and we went to go talk about the military. And we went to In-N-Out, we're grabbing a double-double. And he's explaining stories about the military and positive and negative experiences, this and that. And, do you really want to join? I said, yes. And he's like, well, I'm going to help you make sure you do what you want to do. He says, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't want to sit in an office. I want to actually like go overseas and go to war right now. Like, that's what I want to do. And he was like, why don't you should be a Ranger. And I was like, kind of had heard of the Ranger Regiment and stuff like that. And I was like, well, what is that? And he's like, you're going to get the best gear, the best guns, the best missions. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty badass. And he goes, you're going to get to do all the missions and training like a Navy SEAL, but you don't have to swim. And I was sold. I was like, okay, I'm going to be a Ranger then. Because to this day, I still suck at swimming. But I was like, oh, that's badass. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go join the Ranger Regiment. So I went to the recruiter, and to join the Ranger Regiment, it's called an Option 40 contract. So I go to the Army recruiter and I tell him, okay, I want an Option 40. And they say, well, what if I can't get you one? And I said, well, then I'm not joining the military. And then the next day, the recruiter called me and was like, oh, I got an Option 40 contract for you. Last one just came across the desk. So it was really that conversation with my stepdad's buddy that spurred me onto the Ranger Regiment. I'm at home looking up videos on YouTube of them and things like that. The Option 40 contract I got, that's to get a shot to try out to go to RASP. And RASP is the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. And that's the 8-week selection to get into the Ranger Regiment. But when you have an Option 40 contract, that just guarantees you that, hey, you get a shot to go. It doesn't mean you're in the regiment, you're a Ranger by any means. You still have to pass all the selection. It's just that you have that guaranteed slot to try out. Basic training. I remember getting to basic training and we flew into Fort Benning. And they're like, all right, pull out your cell phones, call your parents, tell them you're here. And I was like, this isn't that bad, And you do like 3 or 4 days of intake and you're just getting gear and boots and getting your head shaved and all that stuff. And then it's, you get on the bus and they're like, all right, you're going downrange to basic training. And I remember being on the bus and everyone's looking around like, oh, what the shit? I mean, there's no turning back now. This is it. I mean, all right, I'm in my freaking ACUs and we got a shaved head. There's no turning back. And we get there and it's like instantly, right as the bus doors open, there's like drill sergeants all in your face screaming, going nuts left and right, get your shit off the fucking bus, go, 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 go. And everyone's running around like chickens with their heads cut off. You're just getting yelled at. And it's like, they call it the shark attack because it's basically, you guys are just the minnows in the water on these buses and the drill sergeants are coming at you like they're like a bunch of blood-hungry sharks doing push-ups in the sand and shit I've never done before in my life. And I'm like, okay, this is legit. This is real. Holy crap, So finally, like after all that settles down and you get into basic training and you get your platoons and all that stuff and you start like meeting the guys in your platoon of, right, who else, anyone else have an Option 40? Well, this guy, who's got an SF contract or what, and it was all infantry guys, so everyone was pretty much there to do the same thing. Like, and most guys all were joined at that point for the same reason. The GWAT was in full swing. Guys just wanted to go overseas. We'll go to basic only with your MOS. So mine was all infantry. The OSA is what the Army calls one station unit training because the Army divides, they have basic training and then they have AIC, which is, I believe it's AIC, which is like their job skill training, right? But for OSA, because it's infantry, it's just one long basic training. You don't have a split thing like that. It's all rolled into one. In basic is where you get that first taste of like guys from all over the country, like completely different backgrounds, completely different people, different experiences. And you like the guys you make friends with, they're like people you never would have met in your entire life if you hadn't joined the military. They're big on like, you can't have contraband, you can't have anything you're not allowed to or issued you can't have. So I know we would go to the PX sometimes to replenish on stuff we had to get. And I was like, dude, I'm going to get these electrolyte tablets. Fuck it. I'm going to be hydrated. It's the summertime in Georgia. I'm from California. So I'd put them in my Camelback. We get back to the bay, and it's maybe like 2 days later. And one of the drill sergeants just like was feeling my Camelback, and all of a sudden he pulls them out, and he asked the other drill sergeant, and he's like, are they allowed to have these? And the drill sergeant's like, fuck no. And I was like, oh, shit. And he's like, beat your fucking face. I'm on the ground doing push-ups. The whole platoon starts getting smoked. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I'm looking at the guys to my left and right. I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. And they're like, we're leaving for 2 minutes. All contraband needs to be piled in the middle of the bay right now. So they go in their room, and literally by the time they come out, I was like, okay, good, it's not just me. There was like 90 items of shit that dudes were sneaking constantly the whole time between food and snacks and God knows what. So I was like, all right, it wasn't just me. But it was funny as I'm like apologizing to everyone. I think the reason no one was mad at me is because they were like, I got shit too, man. So it's all good. But I'll never forget the look on that drill sergeant's face when he looked at me and was like, fuck no. And I knew I was screwed. I was like, oh my God, this is going to suck. I enjoyed it. The being yelled at for me and things like that, it never really bothered me, because I knew that like it's not a permanent thing. Or like when you're getting smoked or you're, doing flutter kicks and push-ups, my brain was always like, dude, at some point these guys have to go home. Like, it's not going to be forever. At some point I'll be asleep tonight in my bed, whatever. So it never like affected me, like getting smoked like that. Like I didn't mind it, because I was like, yeah, it's temporary. You know what I mean? It's going to suck now. I'll be asleep later. Who cares? You really start in basic training for me is when it was like, this is going to be, my life is different now. And my mind has to change. I was so used to a life of comfort, that those comforts get taken away from you, and you either buckle under the pressure and like start hating life and saying it's miserable, or you adapt and just tell yourself like, okay, I can get through this. I did it yesterday. I can do it today. And it's just one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. And it was really, that whole basic training experience was one that started to instill that whole mindset of like, as long as if you can adapt to whatever you're doing, right? Like here I am, I'm a kid from Los Angeles, California. I went to private school my whole life, like, drinking beers with my buddies on the beach, to now I'm doing this and I'm adapting fine. So there's no reason I can't keep going and keep adapting and keep, getting better at this kind of stuff. So I loved basic training. I actually had fun. A lot of people hate it and have bad experiences. I'm like, this is a good time, man. I'm getting what I paid, like what I bargained for. You know what I mean? I'm getting out of this what I wanted. And it was even on the last night of basic training, the graduation's the next day, and the bays are all clean, this and that. And I'm in the 4th platoon on the 2nd floor of our barracks building. It's like 2, 4, 1, and 3 on this opposite side. And the door swings open, and all these dudes from 2nd platoon come running in wearing nothing but socks on their dicks and like bare ass with like weapons of like trash cans and stuff, and just start brawling. And it becomes this giant like all-out brawl in the thing. Shit's flying everywhere, like, and we just cleaned the bay. Like, bunks are getting turned over, lockers are being thrown, and everyone's going nuts. And finally, like, the drill sergeant comes in and he's like, all right, you guys had your fun. And, like, it's over, so he's like, you had your fun, clean this shit up. He's like, the minute I decided it was time to stop was when I saw dudes with socks on their cocks running through the bay downstairs, like running around. It's pretty funny the things you get comfortable with when you live with like 40 dudes in one room for, 3 months of your life, and the same dudes all day, every day. It's just the things that you get comfortable with and used to are not normal in the civilian world. Like, you can't do the things you do in the military, like in those bays, in those barracks, in the civilian world. You'd probably go to jail. Yeah. So I finished up basic training, and all the guys who weren't going to like SF or Ranger, they went home. Like they got 2 weeks of leave. They get to go home, and then they're going to go to their units. For the rest of us, it was like, hey, graduate on Friday. All right, cool. You get to visit with your family for 2 days. Airborne school starts Monday. So then Sunday night, you're right back at Airborne barracks and checking into these new barracks, and you go to Airborne school for 3 weeks. And Airborne school is awesome. It's like they call it like a gentleman's school. You're not getting smoked. You're not at a selection. You know what I mean? They're actually just training you to jump out of planes. And it is a fucking blast, because it's the PT in the morning, PT, it's easy. And then you're just learning how to jump out of a plane. And I'm this 21-year-old kid from Los Angeles. Like, this is the time of my life. I'm jumping out these buildings. Like, it literally feels like you're at an amusement park. You know what I mean? By the time you get to like jump out of the buildings, you're like sliding along zip lines basically, as they're teaching you how to keep your feet and knees together and what to do and stuff like that. And I just had a blast, because I roomed with my buddies from my basic training platoon who were going to the regiment or going to RASP. We roomed together in basic. We were rooming together in Airborne school, and it was a blast. Airborne school, I mean, it's cakewalk. I had never jumped out of a plane before Airborne school. And I'll remember actually, so you do 5 jumps the last week to get your airborne wings and be qualified. Well, our first jump got canked for weather. And I almost kind of half remember being like, oh, good. Because I was still like, you're jumping out of a plane. I mean, now to me, it's second nature. At the time, I'm like, fuck, I gotta jump out of this plane. So I was almost kind of relieved that my first jump got canceled. And I was like, oh, that's canked. We're not doing it. And I was like, oh, I get one more night to not jump out of a plane. You know what I mean? You get on that bird for the first time. I remember being up there and just being like, you're sweating. You know what I mean? You're standing in line like this, grabbing your static line on the coming off the line, and you're just holding it like this and probably like shaking the whole time, and the bird is shaking and things like that. Once they see that green light, like go, and everyone just starts going, and you see the guy in front, and you know, like if you don't go, they'll tap you on the butt 3 times, go, 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 and if you don't go again, then that's it, you fail. You have to jump. There's no choice. I remember jumping out, and I'm counting out loud. They tell you, make sure you count to 6,000 out loud. And I'm counting out loud, like feet and knees together like this, like 1,000, 2,000, like screaming to myself, like I got to make sure I count. And then when you first feel that, and your parachute opens and you look up and you're good, then it's fun. Then you're like, oh, this is awesome. And you just float into the ground. Now, the landing is never fun. I don't care who you are or how good you are at jumping feet and knees together. You're hitting that ground like a sack of shit and like hitting and tumbling over until you unsnap all your stuff. But after that first jump, then it's like, all right, I can do this. This is cool. And then you do 4 more jumps in like 3 days to graduate airborne school. And you get, so actually in airborne school, randomly, like the first day, we're all lined up and they're like, oh, we're going to go to PT. And then they call them black hats because all the airborne instructors wear black hats. And they're like, my number was like 409 or something like that. And they're like, you 409, go grab the guidon. And I was like, fucking guidon? Like I never did that in basic at all. And they're like, it's over there. So I go and grab it and they're like, okay, go. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like holding the flat and they're like, you don't know how to, I'm like, no, I just graduated basic training. I don't know what the hell to do with this thing. So like some of the senior people who were in the class, like officers and like enlisted people were like helping me out. They're like, hey, you need to go up front there. You need to lead out and I'm like, oh my God. So every day for 3 weeks, I had to lead out the entire airborne class with like the guide on. And I'm like, this is fucking terrible. And I'm responsible for it. So we get out, we do our jump, our final jump. Someone brought the guide on out there because we're doing the graduation at the DZ, at the drop zone. And so I have to hold it in front of the formation and do all that for the graduation. So I put it right back where I got it. And then I get on a bus and I leave. So I'm like back at the barracks, I'm changing. We're like, yeah, we're going to go out and, have fun in Columbus and stuff like that. We're done. And the first sergeant for the company comes over, like screaming through the hallways. He's like, where's the fucking guidon bearer? And I'm like, what the hell does he want me for? So I come up like, that's me. He's like, where the fuck is the guidon? And I'm like, right where I picked it up at. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, it's at the drop zone. It's right where I picked it up. He's like, you left it at the fucking drop zone? And I was like, well, first sergeant, no one told me to, I'm like, parade rest and everything. I'm like, no one told me to bring it back. They said, just put it back where you found it. And he's like, God damn it. He went storming out the hallway. And I was like, looking at my buddy, I'm like, was that my fault? And he was like, I don't know, but he's gone now and we're out of class, so who cares? So, wow. I mean, I assume they got it back. Again, a lot of people, when they finish airborne school, they have leave and they can go to their unit. No, ours is like, hey, you guys are going to RASP. Ranger Cadre is picking you up 07:30 Monday morning right here. So we just stayed in the barracks that weekend. We get picked up. So I'll never forget being ready, having like my 2 duffel bags, the green standard issue duffel bags. I'm standing like this. We're all in formation, put the duffel bags down. And a bus comes up and all the tambourets get off because in regiment, you get a tambourette is what you earn when you go through RASP and you earn your spot in the regiment. You get to wear the tambourette. And all these dudes come off and they're the cadre and they're like, all right, you have 2 minutes, get all that shit on the bus. And they know you're not going to get it on the bus. That's the point. You're going to run out of time. So we don't make it on the bus. Everyone off the fucking bus and they're just smoking us right then and there. And I'll never forget, I'm doing flutter kicks in the sand by airborne school and an airborne class goes running by. And one of the instructors for the airborne class is like talking to his class and he's like, you see that? He's like, any of you guys with Ranger in your future, there it is. As they're walking by, all of us just getting smoked on the floor. So they smoke us and they're like, all right, now you have 2 minutes to get all your shit off the bus. Didn't make that time hack. And it basically for an hour was just, they know you're not going to make the time hack. It's on purpose. It's just break you down. We're going to smoke you. And then finally, we get all of our stuff on the bus and they're like, all right, let's go. And the bus takes off and we're like, what? And they're like, run behind the bus. And we have to run the 3 miles behind the bus from airborne school over to where RASP is at the RASP barracks. So that I didn't see coming. I was like, oh God. So you're running, you're following all your stuff on the bus. You get the, the 3 mile run to where regiment is. And then it's the same game of get all your stuff off the bus. You have 2 minutes, you have to get in formation. And literally that whole first intake day, getting smoked all day. You know what I mean? And there are people quitting already. And it's like, we haven't even started. Like this is just to get there. Right? And then you're not even going to start a class yet. You have to go to pre-RAS for like a month while you're waiting for the next class to start up. You're just there in holdover basically, and dudes are already quitting. And it's like, holy shit, dude, like why? Because some dudes, honestly, they're like, hey, I never even wanted to be in regiment. I just used it to get airborne school. So now what they do is they make you go to RASP first so that guys can't cheat their way into airborne school. Where I went, you had to have airborne school first. It's all, you just get smoked, and finally you go to pre-RASP, and I was in pre-RASP for 4 weeks. And I was in pre-RASP in the same bunk room as I was with my buddies from my platoon in basic training, airborne school, and now pre-RASP. We're in the same little bunk room. My buddy Cody Cross, he ended up going to 275, and he's now a firefighter in Northern California. But we're in that pre-RASP for a couple weeks, and all you do is you do hard PT in the morning, and you do like details and ranger knowledge studying all day. That's it. And then that's all you do. And you're just basically just waiting for RASP to get kicked up. But there are people in pre-RASP who are like, oh, this isn't for me, I'm gonna quit. And I'm like, this is easy. Oh, I mean, you get 8 hours of sleep a night, uninterrupted. You know what I mean? You get all you do is hard PT and like maybe run some details and stuff. That's it. So I don't know how people already quit. I mean, they hadn't even gotten hard yet. And I think it's the same as like, if you ever run track or anything and you're in the blocks, you're like, boom, 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 your heart's racing and you're nervous, but then once you actually start running, you feel fine. So that pre-hold, it's like guys quitting because they're just like, don't know what to expect. So they're like making it worse in their brain than it's gonna be, So then finally, I start RASP in late October, early November of 2011. And the first phase of RASP is 4 weeks long, and that's the how bad do you wanna be here phase. So that's just, we're gonna just kick you down in the dirt and beat you down and see who's gonna quit. That's the whole purpose of that, is just attrition for the first 4 weeks. And in that 4 weeks, you go to Cole Range. And everyone who's been in battalion knows what Cole Range is. And it's 12-mile ruck out there because you got to pass your 12-mile ruck test. So we 12-mile ruck out there. You're out there then for like 5 days. And all you're doing all day is land nav all day, land nav all night, and getting smoked in between. And it's this giant like open range, like a giant open field, probably, I don't know, half a mile long. And it'll be stuff every time, and like on the far end of it is what's known as the wood line. So every time something will be messing up, you'll be at the front and the cadres just go hit the wood line, and you're running a half mile down and back. And they'll be like, hey, I have 100 MRE boxes. I want them stacked at the wood line. Guys just carrying these all the way down to the wood line. They'll be like, I changed my mind. I want them back up here now. And you're doing stuff like that. You're like, I'll never forget. They're like, hey, you guys have to assemble this giant tent. And it's this massive tent. I've never assembled a tent like that in my life. I've assembled a pop-up camping tent. So like, that's the kind of thing where like you see guys who have done stuff like that from different backgrounds, and they'll be able to like, okay, I know how to do this, guys. So follow my lead on this, and you just fall in where you get in, We'd set up this huge tent to like fit 30 people. And then the cadre was like, actually on second thought, I want it 4 feet that way. So the whole thing has to come down, move 4 feet over, go back up, and you're not going to meet the time hack. So they're just smoking you the whole time. And the whole purpose of Cole Range, and it was November, so it's freezing. The whole purpose is just quit. That's it, And at nighttime, they set up a giant bonfire, and they're like, hey guys, if you want to go sit by the fire, you just got to quit. You got burgers, hot dogs, whatever you want. We would be standing in formation at like midnight, freezing, and just facing the bonfire to watch the guys who had quit eating food. And we're just starving, like, oh, this is miserable, And that was the whole point of it. They gave us, there was 30 guys in my platoon, and they gave us 10 sleeping bags. And they were like, hey, here's the deal. You guys have 2 hours to sleep. Only one guy per sleeping bag at a time. Go for it. So like doing the math, I was like, that's like 20 minutes a guy. And then everyone else walk in formation, walk in circles around the 10 people sleeping for 20 minutes at a time. And I'll never forget the guy in front of me. For anyone who's gone through stuff like this of like sleep deprivation and stuff, you start droning, and you're basically sleeping while you're awake. So the guy in front of me, he's walking, and all of a sudden he would just stop in place and just start doing this. And I have to like tap him and be like, oh, and like wake up and then like keep going. And dudes are out there droning, you're freezing, you get your 20 minutes in the sleeping bag. And over that 5 days, I think I slept a total of like 3 or 4 hours. Miserable, my feet are aching because you just land nav all day, all night, hit the wood line. I mean, that's the point. It's just how bad do you want to be here? And then you still like have another week after that where it's how bad do you want to be here? And it's just breaking you down on purpose. But it goes back into that thing I was telling you before. It was like, in my mind, I'm saying this isn't forever. I just looked at the cadre. They already had their tambourets. They were already in the regiment. If they could do it, I could do it. Like, it's not impossible. Guys have done this. I can do it. And that was just my mindset the whole time of this can't last forever. Like at some point, it's going to be over. Phase 2 of RASP, that's more like, hey, you stuck it out, you didn't quit. Now we're going to give you some basic skills to take with you to regiment, like basic breaching, some basic marksmanship, kind of stuff like that. And at the end of each phase, you also do like a peers. So like you had to rank all the guys in your squad, of like number 1 to last, you know what I mean? Not including yourself. You have to give like who didn't hold up their end of the bargain, who went above and beyond and stuff like that. And they'll kick dudes out who peer low. Like if you peer really low, they'll just go off of your peer ratings and the cadre will call that guy in and be like, you're out of here. You're not coming. So, and it's pretty interesting. Like dudes went the whole 8 weeks and then did the whole thing and then got peered out and they didn't go to battalion. A large part of it is can you work as a team? Can you use your skills and another guy's skills to balance out each other's weaknesses and be successful? And it's all a mental game, you know. You have to just play that mental game to get there. They even called at one point, we're in a formation and they're like, in this platoon, who's the weakest link? And all of us, one guy, the whole time we were doing this log carry and this water can carry on, and one guy didn't carry anything the whole day. And everyone's like, this guy didn't carry anything all day. And the cadre was like, okay, you're out, and dropped him right then and there. And we were all kind of like, oh shit. Like we didn't know they were gonna drop him. And he was like, what? Like, you know, freaking out. But he asked for an honest opinion, and we told him like, this guy didn't do shit all day, and we all suffered, and he sandbagged the whole time. And they dropped him right there on the spot. And it was kind of like I was like, oh God, they're serious about this. But then you finally graduate. I think we started with about 153 or so, and we graduated 70. So just under 50% we graduated, which is actually a pretty high rate. Some of my buddies' classes were like 30%, 20%, you know. So we graduated a good rate. And I got assigned to 175, 1st Battalion, which is in Savannah, which I was super excited about. That's the one I wanted to get. And only out of the 70, only 10 of us got 175 and everyone else got 275. So I was actually I was pumped. So you have two things. You have a Ranger scroll and you have a Ranger tab. So RASP, being in the regiment, you have a Ranger scroll. That means you're in the regiment as a unit. A tab, the Ranger tab, that's the Army's premier leadership school. So like anyone from any branch can actually go get a Ranger tab, right? But in order to be in the regiment, you have to go through RASP and get your scroll first. And then down the line, you'll go to school to get your tab to become a leader in the regiment. You have to eventually get your tab to stay in battalion. If you don't get it, then you'll be kicked out over time. But there's a saying for us in the regiment that, you know, the tab is a school and the scroll is the way of life. If you have a tab, you're Ranger qualified. If you have a scroll, you're an Army Ranger. Getting there to battalion was normal. You get assigned a company, and then from there, like, platoons pick you, squads pick you based on their needs, kind of thing. And you do your intake, and my intake went fine. My, squad leader, it's just funny, my squad leader, so I'm like 22 years old and a brand new private. My squad leader is like barely a year older than me. He's already got 5 deployments in Afghanistan, Iraq, all this stuff. And it's like, it blew my mind to think like we're almost the same age, and he's like light years ahead in life of where I am and the shit he's done and seen, and he's less than a year older than me because he's been in here for 5 years already, you know. But I meet all the other guys in the platoon, my buddies, and you'll have the buddies I made there, like I'm still friends with them to this day, and I met them in 2011. All your privates are kind of like get together, you know what I mean? So in the regiment, you have privates, then you have your tab spec 4s, and those are guys who have been to Ranger school, have their Ranger tab, but they're not NCOs yet. And then you'll have your team leaders, your squad leaders, and your platoon sergeant, and that's really the layout of the enlisted in your platoon. And tab spec 4 and up are allowed to drop privates and smoke them. So, and it's the tab spec 4s that you want to worry about when you're a private, not some of the team leaders or the squad leaders anymore. The tab spec 4s, dude, they'll smoke the shit out of you. They'll make your life miserable. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you're not in the right place at the right time, they will make your life miserable. I was only ever late to work one time. We had all gone out on a Sunday night, for $2 drinks at the Western Bar in Savannah. And the next day I woke up to my team leader, like waking me up, my alarm's blaring, like I'm late as shit for work. And I'm like, holy crap. So I'm running down to work and I see my squad leader, like, I'm so sorry. And to his credit, like they could, write me up or something like that. All he did was tell my tabs and team leaders, like, make sure he's never late again. And I spent the entire day, I think, on my hands and knees, bear crawling through the cough, bear crawling through the facility, getting smoked for hours. But in my brain, I'm like, I'll take this any day over getting a counseling statement or a written whatever. But I'll tell you what, I was never late again. I've never been late to anything since in my life, ever since that one day, because I'm like, I'd never want to be late to anything ever again. And I never was. And it was all from that. When you're a private, you know, you are the bottom of the totem pole in the regiment. Like your life is not going to be fun. You know, you can make it a lot easier if you're more squared away and in the right place at the right time, paying attention and picking it up. But if you make your team leader's life or your task spec 4's life a modicum harder than it needs to be, your life is going to be miserable. It is going to be terrible. And in battalion, when they drop you to do push-ups, if you haven't been to mountains phase of Ranger School, you got to elevate your feet too. So you got to be like this the whole time doing push-ups because you haven't earned the right to put your feet on the floor yet. Doing push-ups, to get smoked while doing push-ups. But I wouldn't even call it so much hazing as much as it was like just part of it. Like you had to like, and for me, I'm like, this is part of it. You know what it's going to be like. You know, there's definitely some hazing and stuff, but I thought it was positive. I'm like, I don't think I would have had the same experience in the Army if it was like it is now with all the anti-hazing rules and stuff like that, because we embraced it as a part of life. You know, as a private, you knew you were going to get hazed, but you were cool with it because you're like, one day I'm going to be on the other side of this. And it's just, and I know people say that's toxic and a never-ending cycle of hazing, but it's a ritual, man. It's what you went through with your buddies getting smoked on the floor with the other privates because one guy messed up. It wasn't even you, but it is what it is. You guys are sweating together, you know? It's like building camaraderie and trust in your platoon and in your guys. You know, these are guys that you're going to go overseas with and put your life on the line with them. Like you're going to build more trust in that group of men than anyone you've ever had in your entire life. Like the privates, these are going to be the guys you hang out with off of work too. Like it's so funny. You literally, when you get to battalion and you meet the other guys in your platoon and you become friends, you literally see these guys when you're home Monday through Friday, every single day training, and then all day Saturday and Sunday, and Saturday night and Sunday night. And you literally see the same group of people 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day. And that's how closely tight-knit bond you become, you know? It just makes it so valuable is because you're so close, you know, and you do care about the people you're with so much because you guys are going through everything together, you know? The way it normally works in battalion is I got there and you do what's called a training cycle. And that's like all of the training events leading to a deployment. And then you do a deployment. And then after you've done a training cycle and a deployment, then you go to Ranger School. So I did a full training cycle. And then I got to go my first deployment in 2012. And I'll never forget on this deployment, we were down in southern Afghanistan. Because we're in the regiment, we have like a separate camp, right? You need like a special badge to get into the camp. But when you get out of the camp, you want to go to the PX or you want to go somewhere else or whatever like that. If you ever get in trouble and they'll be like, you know, you didn't maybe, I know there's like a no salute thing, but maybe you didn't use rank the right way, or maybe you didn't do something to like big Army guys or people who aren't in battalion. And they'll be like, where's your unit? Be like, I'm on camp over here. Yeah, come on. And you race to the camp. And as long as you beat them into the camp, they don't have a badge, so they can't get in. So you're scot-free. As long as if you get in trouble and you race into that camp before the people mad at you can get there, they won't be allowed in. You'll be scot-free and you'll never see them again. One time, it was literally nothing major, but it was like you can get a speeding ticket out there too if you're driving too fast. So it was, you know, we're driving and got in trouble going too fast in a Hilux. And it's like, oh, well, follow me to the camp for, onto the camp. And then we pull in and they can't pull in. So you get away completely scot-free. But what I loved about southern Afghanistan that's funny is, so you had a Canadian camp there as well and a Canadian PX. So me and the other privates, my buddies, Tim Hopkins, Panella, and Nick Olenskis, Alex Morales, we all would go there and we'd go to the Canadian PX and the British PX because they had Zoo magazine and Nuts magazine. And you're overseas for 4 months. And these magazines were like Maxim magazine, but in Britain and Canada or wherever, all the girls are topless in the magazines, whereas in America, they're not. So everyone would go and get these magazines to bring them back onto camp to like tape up on the walls inside the hooch. Or like, so every hooch you go into, no matter what squad you're in, you always find like a stack of Zoo and Nuts magazines just so they can look at topless girls while they're overseas and like just hang out that way and laugh. And there was the Canadians had a Pizza Hut. So we would drive there sometimes and you'd get like little personal pizzas. And I was like, man, this is living. You get a pizza out in Afghanistan. This is high living, you know, as we're living in, you know, a tent for, 8 guys all in one tent with like little plywood rooms and stuff like that. And if you're a private, you have to share a room. And each room will be like a bunk bed, a nightstand, and maybe a tiny bit of shelving. And it's like, you know, just big enough that you can stand there or lay in bed. And if you're a private, you're sharing a room. So it is tight. The mission for everywhere we went in the battalion is always going to be direct action special operation raids to kill, capture high value targets. So you're going to go out on your goal is to do it in one period of darkness. So you're going to go out on a raid, kill, capture whoever you got to go after, collect all the intel, get on a bird and go back home and eat breakfast. And that's like the epitome. That's what makes Ranger deployments so freaking awesome is there's no patrolling. There's no like none of those long convoys, nothing like that. It's like, hey, we're going to go kill this dude in his house, and then we're going to get back for breakfast and have an omelet. And that's the goal. You know what I mean? And that's what made battalion op-tempo overseas so fun. So my very first mission, I'll never forget that we're in line on the flight line, and one of the other guys in another squad at the time, he's up in front of me, and he's a private, his first mission. And I remember hearing him ask his team leader, someone like, is it normal to be really scared right now? And in my brain, I'm like, oh, man, I mean, I'm glad he said it because I'm a little fucking, I'm not scared, but I'm like anxious, you know? I'm like, holy shit, like, holy crap, this is real. Oh my God, you know? And we get on the bird, and I'm like, this is real. I'm like looking out the back of the 47, and I'm like, dude, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. Like, holy crap, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And we get off the bird and go through the whole target. And I'll never forget that, like, finally, like, I'm on a BP that night, so I'm not actively involved in really anything that's going on with the target. My sergeant's like, my squadler's like, so Aguilar, what do you think? And I'm like, there's a lot of kneeling down because we're on a BP, like, that's our job for the night. And he's like, yeah, it'd be like that sometimes. We're on a blocking position, so we're not actually involved on the target. We're, like, off to the side, kind of like doing an Overwatch kind of thing. He's like, yeah, it'll be like that sometimes. And I remember thinking, we get on the bird and all that, and I was like, that was a lot less eventful than I thought, you know? And as I mature, and at the time, you know, I'm thinking like, I want to get in a firefight and I want to blah, blah, to do this. And then as I mature and go on, I'm like, honestly, those are probably the best type of missions because they're successful. You get what you came to get, you kill all that, and you didn't have to worry about anyone. Like, that's probably the best type of mission, you know? And as you mature, you start thinking that, you know? But when I'm that private, I'm like, all I want to do is shoot my gun. All I want to do is get in a firefight. That's all I want to do, you know? And the thing is about that is like it's not up to you, you know, because the ROEs, unless you're fired upon, you're not shooting it. People can walk around with AKs in Afghanistan. It's legal for them to own them. So it's like unless you get engaged, you're not going to shoot. So I always like thought about as I went on in rank, and you know, I would tell guys that they're like privates then would go out and they're like, all I want is a CIB or a combat infantryman badge. So no, I was in combat and I actually did what I wanted to do. And I eventually, you know, as I moved up in rank, would tell my privates that I'm more impressed when you get an EIB, which is your expert infantryman's badge, because that shows you're an expert at your job. Your CIB, you can't control it, man. You may get one, you may not. That's not up to you. If you don't get fired upon, you're not going to get one. That's not your fault. You could be the best guy at your job. That's not your fault. But you get your EIB, you're an expert at your job, and that's impressive because that's something you have control over. You know, you don't have control over what the enemy does or, you know, getting shot at. That's not up to you. My first deployment was pretty relaxed as far as like things happening on target, you know, it wasn't much of anything. And it was like successful missions and things like that. It was more of like the experience of being in Afghanistan and learning. I actually learned how to drive stick shift out there because when you're on QRF, you have to drive the platoon that's going out. You got to drive them to the flight line. And all they have are these 1980s, I don't know, Afghan buses of some kind, and they're all stick shift. And they're like, Aguilar, you got to drive them. I'm like, I have never driven stick before in my life. And they're like, good news, you got 30 minutes, go learn. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm out there in the rocks, like grinding this bus, trying to figure it out. And finally start figuring it out. So we're driving to the flight line, and one of the K9 handlers for the other platoon, like he's up front with me, and I'm like stalling it, trying to go. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, driving you to the flight line. He's like, you know how to drive stick? And I'm like, no. And he's like, then why the hell are they having you drive it? I'm like, they just told me to learn. And he's like, oh my God. So he was actually then cool. And he's like walking me, and he's like, all right, you're good. Like to get there, you know what I mean? And they know, you know what I mean? That's how I learned how to drive stick shift, was in the rocks in our camp in Afghanistan. And I'll never forget another time too, my tab spec force. So as a private, our jobs, you would rotate like what jobs are on the camp. And it was my turn that day to stock waters in the gym. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it at this time, right? But my tab had different ideas. He wanted it done earlier, but I didn't know that. I'm thinking later it'll be fine. So I'm in the gym working out. He finishes up working out and he says, meet me in the ready room in 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good. So I get in there. He's like, put your kit on. So I put on my kit, and he just starts smoking the shit out of me nonstop. And he's like, why aren't the fucking waters filled in the gym? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm explaining it later. And it's occurred to me that like, it doesn't matter what I say, man. If it wasn't done right when he wanted it, I'm going to have the wrong answer no matter what. And it's like funny. I'm laughing because I'm like, I'm getting this shit smoked out of me as a grown man by another grown man because I didn't fill up the waters on time, like to his schedule, but it was just like, that was one of the worst smokings I ever got in my entire life. And it was just me too. So there was no way, if you get smoked in a group and you're doing flutter kicks, you can sometimes like rest your legs or like lay down push-ups, like get a break. There was no break. It was just me. And I'm just getting the piss smoked out of me in the ready room for 40 minutes straight. And I'm like, this is fucking awful. And to this day, I will never forget that smoking. To this day, I like think about the steam coming off my face. So my first deployment, we didn't get shot at all. The other platoon got some, but that one, like nothing. You know what I mean? And it's funny, I tell guys, because they'll be like, oh, Ranger Regiment, you get crazy all the time. I said, dude, I did 6 deployments and over 100 missions. I said, there were probably 5 total missions that were like legit firefights in all of them. You might have a tick here or there, RPG, fly over, or something like that. But like, that's it. Like, it's not like the movies, you know what I mean? It's not every single time. But then there will be earlier in the war, some guys will go out and every single night they'll get into it, you know what I mean? And it's all, again, it comes back to that luck of the draw. So we're going after this one guy, and normally we like to do it in one period of darkness, but they're like, hey, we think he's over here. It's going to be a follow-on. So we end up, this one mission, we were riding Strikers, I think, or Humvee. We were in vehicles, which was new because we never did that. We always flew, you know what I mean, in Afghanistan. So we were on vehicles, and I think it was Strikers, and I know I was responsible for getting the ladder off the side of the vehicle. But anyway, so we start running, and it's like daylight out at this point, and we're like running right through the middle of the street in this village, and we come to this compound, go in, do all this, pull a guy out and like, cuff him up, do all that stuff. And my squad leader pulls out a picture of like who we're going for, looks at it and looks at the guy, and it's like an exact match. And my squad leader just starts busting out laughing in his face. And the guy's just like, he doesn't know what's so funny, but I'll never forget my squad leader like dying of laughter. And that was a big one. And there was not a single shot had to be fired, no nothing, but we just had to follow him on in the sunlight to go find him. And it ended up being super successful. And I'm like, cracking up, like thinking of my squad leader, and he's like, my squad leader was like 5'6", maybe 150 pounds, but he's like laughing like he's 6'5" in this dude's face, and this dude, outweighs him by like 100 pounds. It's funny, they always talk about like the Afghan guys who have money, they always have like bigger bellies. They always eat better than everyone else. So this guy was eating pretty good. So we finished that deployment. I come back, and then I go to Ranger School. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm going to Ranger School. And what's funny is I talked about my buddy Cody Cross. I went to basic training with him. I went to airborne school with him. I went pre-RAS, RAS with him. He goes to 275, I go to 175. Haven't seen him in a year, and he walks through the door at CERT to go to Ranger School at the same time as me. And I'm like, what's up, dude? I haven't seen you. So we went through that together at the same time too. We were like, dude, what are the odds of this? That's hilarious. But you go to CERT first, which is like 3 weeks of pre-Ranger for guys in regiment. They, just give you like tips and tricks, and you practice doing what you're going to do in Ranger School. And then Ranger School, the way I describe it to people is that it's not difficult. Like the tasks you're required to do are not difficult. It just sucks. You're just tired, wet, hungry, but you have to do these tasks while you're tired, wet, and hungry. Can you get other guys to do them while you're tired, wet, and hungry? And I went in the wintertime, so it was freezing. Like I remember being in mountains and it was sleeting. And I was at the patrol base at the time. I wasn't hitting the actual like raid for the night or whatever. They just had us walking in, instead of like laying for security, they're like, you guys just get up, walk in a circle to stay warm, do jumping jacks, do something, and it's just sleeting sideways. And I'm like, this is fucking miserable. And like you go wake up in the morning to open your rucksack, and you like pop it open and it just stays straight up because it's frozen solid. And you're like, are you like, that was some of the most miserable times of my entire life. Because you're walking up mountains like this with 100 pounds on your back. It's freezing cold, and everything hurts. You're tired, you're hungry. You finally get to eat your MRE, and it's pouring rain, and I'm just watching like the bread slop away in my hand that I'm trying to like shove in my mouth before it melts into nothing. That's the point though of Ranger School is can you suffer like this and still do what you have to do? And that's why it's like the premier leadership school for all the military. Is because can you get people to accomplish a mission when they absolutely don't want to, when they're tired, they're wet, they're hungry, you know what I mean? And that's all Ranger School is it's, you know, if you go, and there's a big pride of honor, like badge of honor, if you go straight through is what we call it. Like you don't get any recycles. And luckily I was able to go straight through. So I was like, yeah, straight through, where I had buddies, took them like 9 months, and it's only a 60-day school, but you recycle and recycle and recycle. But the thing in regiment, if you don't come back with your tab, you're kicked out. So there's no quitting. You know, they could guys stay there for 9 months, and dudes, they'll come back and they're like, you didn't quit. At least you got it, man. Most challenging part of Ranger School for me was simply in mountains phase being so cold and tired that I just didn't, there was a point where I was like, this is fucking dumb. I don't want to do this anymore. You know, like we're walking up a mountain and it's sleeting on us, and I'm like, this is awful. Like this is the worst moment of my entire life. Like I feel worse now than I ever have in my entire life. That thought ran through my brain. I was like, dude, I could fucking quit. I don't have to do this shit. I'm going to serve out the rest of my time somewhere else in the Army and get out. You know what I mean? But as quick as that thought came in, it went out. I was like, all right, no, I got to finish. Like, and I just thought again about my buddies who I was privates with, but then they had graduated Ranger School before me. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking of my team leader. I'm like, they've all done it. You know what I mean? I can do it. That's like a big mindset being in battalion taught me, or in the Army, or like suffering through hard things, is like anything I want to do, I'm probably not the first person to ever do it, so it can be done. You know, like, and I tell that to other people, like, you can do anything you want, because I guarantee you're not the first person to do it. It can be done. So when I graduated Ranger School, I was like a shell of my former self, because you go without eating, without time. I think I was like 150 pounds, like nothing, skin and bone, like look like a bobblehead, you know, and everyone looks that same way, but it's a static. When you get they call them getting a go, like you're in a graded position in Ranger School at certain points, and you either get a go or a no-go, and you need to get a go in each phase to graduate, you know what I mean? And you may get multiple chances. Like one in Darby, I had a no-go first, and then I got to go like the last day. So I was able to go on, and I was like, holy shit, yes, you know, and then each phase I got to go. So the big thing is, like, you know, you're going to graduate before you graduate. Like if you're in the field and you did really good, you know, you got to go like on day 3 or whatever, like you're pretty high in like, you know, you're good. You know what I mean? And if you start getting assigned, like you'll get assigned positions. If you start getting assigned RTO and like shit like that, pretty like almost every other day, it's because you're good. You've got to go. So once I started getting RTO and I wasn't getting graded anymore, and I had like 5 more days in the field in Florida, I was like, dude, I'm gonna graduate. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap. And they put on, like, when you get back, they do like that big dog X and stuff like that. And they have pizzas and hot dogs and all that kind of stuff that you just gorge. And you haven't eaten for like weeks, and you gorge until you're throwing up and you're sick, and everyone's puking. Everyone's sick as hell, but it's so good. It's like the worst cold hot dogs, but they've never tasted so good in your life. You know what I mean? Like Shasta Cola, but it's like champagne. But you know you have a go. So I remember calling my dad from the payphone that they have at Florida Phase, and telling him I'm graduating. I'm gonna graduate. And he was like, pumped and excited. And I was like, dude, that felt so good to me. You know what I mean? To be like, God, that felt good to know, like, to be able to call my family and tell them, like, I'm gonna graduate. Like, you know, because they've heard, and you know, stories about how tough it is and stuff like that. And me, it was like such a pride moment of like, I fucking did it. I went straight through. I graduated. Like, I'm going back to the regiment with my tab. Like, you know what I mean? You can't kick me out just yet. So after you graduate Ranger School, you come back and now tab spec force. You have a little more freedom. You know what I mean? You're not treated as much like a private anymore. You know, you're looked at as like a young leader in the platoon and the regiment. And then you become like the first line of, like, when privates have questions, like you're the first line, people with answers and things like that. So I got back and I was supposed to go overseas immediately, but then that ended up getting delayed. So the whole platoon went, and me and my buddy Morales, who graduated Ranger School with me, we stayed back. I had to intake like some new privates, and we were on what's called rear D, like the rear detachment, until mid-row, which is like the halfway point of deployment. They'll send guys home who are going to Ranger School, and then guys at home waiting to deploy, they'll send them overseas. So we went overseas that time, and that deployment for me was short, as like 45 days. So it was a quick, short deployment. At this point, I'm a saw gunner, and I'll never forget, like, I'm looking over at my team leader one mission like this, and, you know, we're all out at night, so we all have our nods on. The ground, we were walking through those fields. If you've ever been in Afghanistan, everyone will know they have fields where it's like level, and it just drops like this, like steadily. So you have to find the walkways to walk. Otherwise, you're going to step off and just fall 4 feet flat on your face. And my team leader was looking at me, trying to tell me something, like pay attention or whatever. And as he's doing that, he walked right off one of the things and face planted. And I'm like, oh shit, sorry, are you all right? He's like, leave me the fuck alone. I'm fucking fine. And like pissed off and stuff. But that deployment, we as TAP Spec 4s, we actually got in trouble for smoking the privates too much, because we would be in the ready room. Like when you're TAP Spec 4, you quiz your privates on what's called Ranger knowledge. You know, you'd be like, you know, what's the, you know, maximum effective distance of an M4? All right, what's the firing rate of a saw gun or whatever it is? You know what I mean? You're quizzing them on all these like weapons knowledge and Ranger history. And we're in the ready room, like, I'll never forget, my buddy Hopkins is like standing, he's got a broom on his back like this, and he's just walking, pacing on the table in the ready room as all the privates are on the floor around him. And we're just smoking the hell out of them with like Ranger knowledge questions. And we ended up getting in trouble because one of the squad leaders, like, you know, I'm wondering why the hell the privates are coming out of the ready room, all their heads fucking steaming and puking and shit like that. So they were like, you guys are not doing that like that ever again. But that deployment was quick and easy. It was a short one, you know. We get back, and I go to the recce platoon. The recce platoon, I only wanted to go there because I didn't want to have to shave. Because if you go to recce and you deploy, you don't shave. That's the only reason I wanted to go there. Is I was like, I want to grow a beard. Of course, at the time I didn't realize I couldn't grow a full beard. I just grew a patchy, like really Hispanic Mexican beard. So everyone was like laughing about that. And I do that. And the training cycles for those, I did not realize that they fucking suck. Like I did not realize that doing the long recon, like infills and there for 3 days, and then I'm like, oh, this is not as I thought it was gonna be cracked up to be. But you get cool deployments out of it, and you get to do cool stuff. So it's like a trade-off. That's what you're really waiting on the trade-off, you know. I did 2 deployments with the recce platoon. The first one was pretty uneventful, but it opened my eyes to a lot of like the military contracting world and like other units and like capabilities outside of just SOCOM and stuff like that. You see how big like the effort really was in Afghanistan, you know. So, but the second deployment, we would be doing a lot of electronic reconnaissance kind of stuff. So we would have like vans and things like that we'd have to drive through the city that we were in Afghanistan, and we would dress like in ma'am jams, basically dress up like we were locals. And it's funny because I would be like some of the guys who are super white, we'd have like this brown paint, and they'd like put it on to darken their complexion. And they'd look at me and be like, you don't need it, you'll be fine. I'd be like, and they were like, dude, you probably blend in more than all, you look Afghan. Like I had like kind of a patchy-ish beard and like long hair at the time. And they're like wearing the local clothes. And they're like, dude, you literally look like you are just living this country right now. I'm like, well, I guess that's a good thing, huh? Like they're like getting a kick out of it. But it's funny because it's like, I'm sitting there, we're doing these reconnaissances dressed like Afghans, you know what I mean? But like have low-vis plates on under our outfits and guns at our feet. And we're driving through the city, and I'm just eating beef jerky. Like looking around the city, eating a bag of beef jerky. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is funny. I'm dressed like an Afghan, driving in a van full of special operation dudes with rifles, and I'm eating beef jerky. And this is some good beef jerky. And that's all I could think about was like this homemade beef jerky I was eating as we're doing whatever. And it's just funny because like looking back and you know, to me, that was just normal, you know, like that was what we were doing. It was just normal. It's like, I'm gonna eat some snacks while we're doing this. But, you know, on the outside looking in, it's like, it becomes the norm. It's so normal to me, you don't recognize that like, it's not a normal job to have, or like it's not normal to be dressed up doing close target reconnaissance missions and stuff like that. But when it's so normal, you just becomes part of life and eat some beef jerky. You know what I mean? And it's like a totally normal thing. And that deployment was really fun because that's all we did was like got to do good, awesome reconnaissance stuff and training and things like that I hadn't been exposed to in that way. And it was another eye-opening thing of like, there's a lot out there like of jobs you can have, things you can do. My next deployment was the most eventful deployment I had out of all of them, as far as the most firefights, the most things done, and like the most targets taken out at like as far as like high value. So my 5th deployment, I'm in Afghanistan again. Me and my buddy Alinskis, we're actually team leaders together in the same platoon now, which is we were privates together, tabs together. Now we're team leaders together. I'll just call him Sergeant C. He's our squad leader. One of the best leaders I've ever had my entire life. Is like, dude, that guy was awesome. He's so smart and cool. He's just awesome. And he was our squad leader, so I was lucky to have him as our squad leader. There's several missions that were like really big. So we had planned long day missions. Normally, we hit one night at a time, and these missions they're playing like this is gonna be 3 days long. You got to pack for it. You got to do all this stuff. So I'll never forget the first night, like it's a long infill. It's like 12, 13 clicks or something like that. So we land, we're infilling. Another platoon is leading out. The guy who's always leading out, we all have our nods on and stuff, and they got their strobe going so you can see like how far the point man is. And I'll never forget walking straight up this fucking cliff face, and I'm like, what the fuck? Who the hell's leading this out? Like, if you're the team leader in charge of leading it out, like you better find a good route. Dudes are gonna be cursing your name the whole time. So I get to the top, and I remember looking straight out, and it's, in my nods, and I can see his IR strobe, and it's about eye level even with me, but the guys in front of me are going straight down. And then I'm like, oh God, and it dawned on me, I went straight up, we got to go straight down, and then we're going straight back up. And I'm like, dude, so we ended up we walked all night, and we were like, we only made it so far, and they're like, hey, we got to stop right here, and we're gonna remain over day here for the day. You know what I mean? Like it's just too long. So we're over there for the day, and it's like they'll air supply in stuff, so you have some MREs and shit like that. But it's just boring, just sitting out in the sun, 33% security, just like. And I'm thinking like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. Period of darkness raids, not 3 days walking, patrolling, like to go find these dudes. You know what I mean? And then the next night we get picked up by birds. We infill to another spot. So our nods at the time, we just switched over to 31s. So if you don't put a lithium battery in your 31s, it eats regular batteries in like 30 seconds. So I put my nods down, getting off the bird, and my shit dies. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm like undoing this as I'm trying, and I'm the team leader leading out on that bird. So I'm the point man, but I can't fucking see anything. So I'm undoing my battery pack here, and I'm like taking out that battery, and I'm like, okay, I got a lithium somewhere. As I'm like looking at my Garmin, trying to like, okay, arrow, I can see the arrow that way. I'm gonna walk this way. So I finally get switched. My squad leader's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, dude, I can't see shit. I'm like putting it in, I'm like, okay, I'm good. He's like, you better get back online, like, and go. And I'm like, we finally get to where we're going, and like the other platoon that night was hitting it. We're kind of just staying off on the side. It's kind of cool if you've never seen like actual call for fires like in real life and like under nods. It looks and sounds like a video game. Like when the actual Apaches come in and they'll just lay down some fire, they shoot like their 40 mic and all that. It literally looks and sounds like a video game. Like it doesn't even sound real, and the way it looks, it's like, imagine like if you're playing like those old 80s like video games that are like 2D. That's like what it looks like in the sound, like meow, like it's so weird. But they're like watching them, and they're like call for fire, and they're shooting the shit out. I guess these guys took off in the valley, so they're shooting them up. They go. So then the other platoon, they got in a couple, smoked some guys in the room as they went into one room. Then killed the rest of the guys in the wadi, and we're like, all right, we're gonna get the hell out of here. And then it's like, right, an hour left, and they're like, hey, we got too much stuff we got to go through, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be here for a couple hours. And we're like, oh, we're going to have to stay. We're going to take over this dude's house for the rest of the day again. So we take over this dude's house for the day. And I'll never forget, I was so thirsty, and they do a resupply. And for some reason, all they gave us were like little 8-ounce cans of V8. Like tomato juice. And I was like, what the fuck? But I'll tell you, I opened it and I was like, this is the best tasting thing I've ever had in my life. All I had was water for 3 days straight, and I had a warm V8, and everyone was like, this V8 is the best thing I've ever had in my life. So we're all like sitting in a kumbaya circle, like drinking warm V8s and being like, oh my God, this is heaven on earth. Like what a privileged life we have. Then so the next night hit another target. Successful, found a ton of stuff, and they're like, hey, we're just gonna bip it in place as we exfil. So the EOD guys did their magic with God knows all that shit they carry, and they bipped it, and we exfilled, and it was successful. But I'm like, dude, that was 72 hours. I'm supposed to, Range Regiment, we're supposed to work for one night. Later on in that deployment, so we're going after a big target, and it's gonna be another 3-day target, and we know ahead of time. So we're like, okay, cool. So we're going to be taking 47s, and they're like, hey, we may or may not fast rope in, wear your fast rope gloves just in case on the bird, whatever. So we get word over the radio as we're in the bird that, hey, they roped in at the HLZ, so we're going to rope in. When you fast rope, you land, and even if you fall, you quickly roll the hell out of the way because the next dude's coming. So I land and I freaking take off, right? And you pull security facing out. So my saw gunner went down, and he was already a big dude, tall, jack dude. And he's got the size, he probably weighs 320 pounds in kit. And he goes down and lands, and then one of our like Afghan counterparts comes in super hot right behind him, didn't wait. You're supposed to wait for the guy in front of you's head to clear the tailbird, the tail of the bird before you go to give him time, but I don't think the Afghan, commando waited. And he landed straight on my saw gun and snapped his femur in half. He's literally like screaming. So we have to get his stuff, and they're gonna load him right back up on the bird. And I remember him looking at like our platoon sergeant and stuff, and being like, "I'm sorry, Sergeant, I'm sorry." And like he didn't do anything wrong, you know what I mean? I mean, he could have probably moved faster, but it's like he felt bad that he couldn't go out and help the rest of the platoon on this mission. This was the first ever declared hostile target mission that like they didn't need, the ROI was if you see anyone, you can shoot them. That was it was like a huge deal. Like you never hear about that. And he was disappointed because he couldn't go out with the rest of the guys and do it because he broke his leg, and it's a total freak accident. And I'll never forget him like apologizing, like he felt bad that he couldn't be there. And I think it's you spend years and months training with guys. All you want to do is deploy with them and go out on target with them. That's the whole point. So when you can't do it, you feel like even if it's out of your control, you feel like you let them down. We end up walking. We do the infill. So me and my squad leader, Sergeant C at the time, we take point once we get into this wadi where this little camp was at. And there's a tent here, and so we clear that tent by fire, and it's clear, no one's in there. So as we start walking this way, there's like a couple cave entrances and stuff like that. And we start taking fire out of that cave. And me and him are probably like maybe 20, 25 meters from the entry of the cave. So we start returning fire, and we're shooting, and our saw gunner over here and another squad leader, they're engaging. So we're all shooting in the little gunfight here. And I remember getting punched in the leg. And I was like looking around as I'm like shooting, like bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, I think I just got punched in the leg. I'm like, the fuck is that? I'm like, all right. So we're like, we got to bound back. I get up to bound back. And I'm like, ah. And I'm like, that feels weird. Like, I feel like I got a Charlie horse. We bound back, and he's like, hey, we need a 320 right now. So I had the 320, which is like the handheld 40 mic grenade launcher that we would use, because I was the only one in our squad who had like finished the qual with it. So normally the team leaders don't carry it, but luckily this night I did. So I put it in, and like we bound back, and I'm like, dude, I think I got hit in the leg. And I'm like, no, that's weird. It's just a weird feeling. So finally, after we engage, we're shooting him, bound back, and I shoot the 320, and it goes right into the mouth of the cave, goes off, and it's just like silence out of the cave. So we're like, all right, those dudes are dead. Awesome. So I put it back. I go to bound back, and I like look down with my nods, and I'm like trying to look this way, like focusing them, and like rubbing my hand here, and it just feels like I pissed my pants. And I was like, And I go to the dock then. Then all of a sudden they start shooting again, and like the other squad over here, they're back in contact in there. And I go to the dock, and I'm like, Doc, am I crazy, or did I just get hit in the leg? And he's like this, and he's like, you're not crazy. And I'm like, oh, well, at least I'm not crazy, and it is something. Okay, I didn't pull a muscle. So I get behind a rock, and they like cut my pants open. And it's funny, I think about this at the time, because in battalion you're taught if you get shot in the arm or the leg, you put your own tourniquet on, right? And you don't take someone else out of the fight, you put your own tourniquet on. And when I was a private, my first squad leader told me, Aguilar, if you ever get shot in the arm or the leg and you don't put your tourniquet on yourself, I'm gonna punch you in the fucking face. And I was like, hey, roger that. So I'm like laying there, the doc's pressure wrapping my leg, and all I can think of is like, oh shit, I didn't put my own tourniquet on. Like, my old squad leader still owes me a punch in the face to this day if he ever sees this. So I ended up took a round in the leg. I think it was a ricochet off a rock, because we're like standing there in the wadi, So the doc pressure, packs it, pressure wraps it. And I'm like, all right, we're good. So we're like, we're going to get out of this wadi, and we're going to drop a bunch of fire on it from whatever round they're going to drop on it. And I remember walking back, and they're like, and Aguilar's going to get medevaced out. But I'm walking. I'm like, dude, I'm walking myself out of here. I can walk. Fuck it. My buddy, I remember he's like pretty upset. He's like, you good, man? You good? And they're like, what the hell are you worried about? You didn't get shot. He's like, yeah, that's my best friend, man. What do you want? And it really occurred to me, it had nothing to do with that. It's just spending so much time with these people. Like, they become in your platoon, they're your best friends, they're your brothers that you bleed with, you sweat with, you cry with, you share all these things with, you know what I mean? It like almost upset him more than it actually did me. And I don't know, that was an interesting dynamic, because he's just like helpless, he can't do anything about it or whatever it is. But I think you should spend so much time with these people, you care about them, you know what I mean? No matter what, they become your brothers, And I'm walking out, and I remember telling another guy, Santinella, who got out, and I'm like, dude, you're only gonna squat more than me on this deployment, because I'm not gonna be able to squat for a few weeks, that's why. Nothing else. And he's like laughing and stuff. So then they medevac me out, and I go into they take me to the hospital. They put me under, and they clean it all out and all that stuff. And I wake up in my bed, and right across from me is my saw gunner. And he's like, "What's up, Sar?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." And we're like, "Bullshit." He's like, "So how'd it go?" I was like, talking about whatever, and some of the other guys from battalion, they come there who were on the QRF for the mission and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, when you get your stuff, get you out of here." And I'm like, "Well, I'm patched up. You can just put me back on with a resupply bird. I'm good to go." And they're like, "No, you can't do that because of X, Y, and Z and all this shit." I'm like, "Well, okay, well, whatever." Because I knew they're still gonna be out there for 3 days. You know what I mean? So I go back to our base, and I'm waiting for the rest of the platoon. I'm just on crutches by myself, hanging out like for 2 days, just crutching myself to the chow hall by myself. I'm like, this is lonely as hell. So they all get back, and like we're doing our what's up, this and that, and we go to the post-op like briefing. And, they always go through like what we found and all this kind of stuff. There's a picture. They put it on the actual official briefing, and it pops up, and it's my buddy Alinskas standing there with the ass of his pants completely blown out. So his bare ass hanging out. And normally when we would wear cries, we'd wear like compression shorts underneath them or something like that, so he didn't shave. But this mission, he chose not to. So on the official briefing that's going up the chain of command, the use of sock and all this stuff, here's Alinskas' ass on one of the things. And apparently he blew his ass out and walked around with assless chaps for 2 days on target in Afghanistan, getting in firefights and shit. And I'm like cracking up, and everyone's laughing, and they were like, "Yeah, too bad you couldn't find yourself a pair of pants out there," and like making fun of him and shit. He said sitting down was like tough, and he had this thick Boston accent. And he's like, "Oh, whatever, dude. That shale rock was so fucking hot out there on my ass, dude." And he's funny. He was a character. He's one of those guys that like, when you get people from different backgrounds, and he was like got busted on the Boston Harbor for selling illegal Russian cigarettes and like some other crazy ass shit like that. He's just one of a kind. It's like thick Boston accent, and they'd be like, "So why did you join the regiment?" He's like, "Oh, it's better than an indictment, I'll tell you that much." Like all this crazy shit. He's a character, but it was funny. His ass is right there. He walked around in assless chaps for 2 days in Afghanistan on target. Like 3 weeks. And then I was back on target. I went out again. I was good to go, went on target after 3 weeks. And we do an infill, and we get to this house, and I'm on like a containment, kind of like just outside the actual like house, and I can like look in the windows and shit like that. The Afghans are taking the lead on this one. And right as they go in the hallway, the room just starts getting lit up with AK fire. Boom, 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 boom. And they, in that like narrow hallway, and they're calling out that the Afghan platoon sergeant, I think he took one to the throat or something. So he's down, another guy in the shin. And that guy there's a guy barricaded himself in the room, and they couldn't get access to him at the time. So they dragged out their fallen guys, and then they went back in and fragging the room and like shooting the guy. So finally they got rid of the guy. And then they're like, "Okay, that's good." So we go in, and I remember that was like the first time that the sun had started to come up, and we were gonna stay there again over day. I remember that was the first time I like looked down, and it's not like in the movies, like fresh blood. In the movies, they use corn syrup and it's like dark red and stuff, but these puddles of fresh blood in the dirt was like bright red, like almost like highlighter red. And I'd never seen like actual like big puddles of blood like that before. And I remember thinking like that looks nothing like it does in the movies. And then having, we have to shovel over the blood with our boots and stuff like that. The guys coming back that carried them out, they're like wiping off their garments because they got blood on it. And it just struck me, all that was bright red. And all the blood was so bright red compared to what you see in the movies that really threw me off. I was like, this is nothing like the movies. You know what I mean? Like, that looks nothing like the movies. So they killed that guy who was, engaging them and killed some of their own people. And then in the other room, there was a woman and her baby, and she got into a standoff again with Afghans and stuff. And they were yelling through a translator. I guess she was yelling, "The Americans are going to come kill and rape, they're going to rape me and kill my baby," and stuff like that. And obviously that's not the case. We're just trying to get everyone out of the house to talk to the women and children that are there and everything. And we're like, they're trying to talk through the door, and then it just went boom. And I guess she lit up, cooked a frag or something like right in her hand, and killed her and her baby, I guess, because she thought we were going to like rape her and kill her baby. I don't know. Looking in, and it was, because I have young kids, and this baby was probably the same age as my youngest, and just the like split open nature of this baby's like neck. And I'm like, sure, this woman was so endued that we were going to rape her and kill her kid, that this was the much better option. That's probably what she had been told the whole time for the 10, 15 years we were there in Afghanistan at that point. You know what I mean? So that's all she knew. Whereas we were like, we're not going to do that at all. And it was just crazy to me that was like such a huge like discrepancy in what they believed and what we believed, whether right or wrong, you know what I mean? At the time, the sergeant major of the regiment went out on that mission with us, and he was leaving the regiment. That was like his last mission, you know? And he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He's like, "We're gonna stay out here all day." He's like, "I was doing this shit 20 years ago." And I'll never forget, it's freezing at this time. It's like November, December. They got like a big bonfire that they kind of built for the guys that were in this position up here during the day. The sergeant major's like, "It's good to do stuff like this every now and then. It builds toughness in the men." And like 5 minutes later, he like walks up to the fire and he's like curls up into a ball. He's like, "I'm so fucking cold," like shivering. And everyone's like laughing. They're like, "Oh, if he can do it, I can do it too." And like guys are all like bundling up in the cold. And what's cool about deployment overseas is it's like you wake up, if you don't have a mission, or like no one's going out, there's weather, whatever, all you're gonna do is eat and work out and watch movies, hang out. That's it. And with your boys, that's it. And if you do have a mission, then you're just, then it like changes. You get ready you wake up, you're on a reverse schedule. We work at nighttime. So you wake up and you'll, get all your shit ready, prepare your con op. If you're one of the team leaders and above, we have to prepare pieces, whether you're doing the infill or you're doing HLZ, whatever it is. So you prepare your stuff, you're briefing it, then you're in the ready room getting ready, and then you're out on target, and the goal is you're back, done with the debrief, everything, and you're eating an omelet in the chow hall for dinner. It's like, because that generally it's like that one night thing, most units don't have that, you know what I mean? Like most units, all the regiment, the main thing is you're just doing direct action raids. Here's this guy, here's where he is, we're gonna go kill or capture him in his fucking house, and that's all we did, and it was awesome. It was a time of my life. And but later, so we did another one, like it was our final mission of that deployment. We weren't even gonna go. We were supposed to be shut down already, and they're like, "No, we're gonna squeeze this last one in, we're gonna go." And so it's like right on the border of Afghanistan and another country. And they're like, well, no matter what, you cannot shoot into this other country. So I'm on a blocking position this time, kind of off on the side, and we're looking through like thermals. I have a sniper team with me and a machine gun, and I'm looking through thermals, I don't know, a couple hundred meters away. And these guys definitely have AKs, I'm like making out, but they're not doing anything with them. So I'm like, fuck. But because I'm so far away, my comms were shitty. I'm like passing up what I'm seeing. One of the other leaders were like, "Hey, if you see AKs, engage." But I didn't get it because my comms were sucking. I didn't hear about it until afterwards. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, we could have gotten rid of those dudes before a firefight and all that stuff. Then in the house behind us, the rest of my platoon, they got in a little firefight there. They smoked those dudes. The other platoon got in a little tick up at their compound. We're doing a SIMO. So like two platoons were hitting two targets at the same time, like two buildings kind of adjacent. And so they're both getting in ticks in the buildings. They end up killing those dudes. My buddy ended up smoking the number one dude in this big organization we were going after, and that was pretty badass. We were pumped on that. It's getting close to the sunlight, and normally if the sun's up, the birds won't come pick us up because it's too dangerous for them. And it's getting close to the sunlight, and we're like, all right, we're gonna exfil. So we're like getting in line, and they're like, hey, just be aware, like vehicles are amassing on the other side of the border between Afghanistan and this other country, and then like techs and all this stuff. And we're like, all right, well, if they shoot whatever. So we're walking, and like occasional RPG will fly over, but like nowhere near us, like as far as height wise and shit. The squad leader in front of me, let's call him Sergeant B, this big jacked black dude, and tall, he's 6'4" or something like that. I'm obviously a lot shorter than him. And we're walking, and one goes close enough, right, an RPG goes, that me and him hit the deck. And I'm like, oh shit. And he's like, that one was fucking low. And it launches and it blows up into the hillside over here to our left. And he's like, Aguilar, if I die on this mission, I'm going to be fucking pissed. Because it was our last one. We were about to go home. And he was like, I swear to God, if I get killed, I'm going to be pissed. And I'm like laughing, and we're cracking up. So we're getting online for exfil. And we're walking out. We're going to leave. There's some RPGs flying over, but none are like that close that we have to worry about it. And then finally one gets really close to me and the sergeant in front of me, who's this big, tall dude. And we hit the deck and come back up, and he looks at me and he's like, Aguilar, I swear to God, if I die on this mission, I'm going to be fucking pissed. And I'm like laughing, it's our last mission of the deployment, so it's kind of funny. So we get online, we're waiting for exfil, and we start to see off in the distance this way, like all the birds coming to come pick us up. And as they're coming in, you just see a wave of tracer rounds start flying through the sky. And as far as tracer rounds go, there's one tracer round for 4 rounds. So every round you see, there's 4 times as many bullets flying. So there's just a wave of tracers hitting the birds, and you can see the bird miniguns like shooting back this way, these birds over here shooting this way, and everyone right here, we're like on a knee, kind of just is like stood up at this point, and you have guys with like 240 machine guns just standing like they're Arnold Schwarzenegger and just hip firing like this. And everyone online, like everyone is just shooting from the hip, not even looking, just sending rounds wherever they can, you know? And it obviously, allegedly one of the higher radio communicators I can get was like, stop firing into that country. And it's like, no, sorry. So everyone's online shooting. Finally, the birds land. So as I'm turning around to run onto the bird, the dude on the minigun is just getting it. And I remember seeing a lot of dirt being kicked up. And normally, like when a bird comes down, dirt will fly out, right? But the way it was kicking up, I was like, holy shit, this bird is kicking up a lot of dirt. Then I found out after it turned out those were all just rounds hitting everywhere. We get on the bird, we run on to the bird, and my squad leader's standing on the tail of the bird as it's taken off, and he's still just shooting off the tail. It looked like a picture of a movie you would see of like a guy standing on the back of a 47 helicopter just shooting his rifle next to the minigun guy, and he's like pointing to the guy on the minigun and to where to shoot, and he's shooting, and you still hear the rounds going off on the bird constantly. We exfil, and everyone's fine. Like everyone's like, I'm good, you good? Like, yeah, that was awesome. That was badass. Like we're all good, you know, and it was a successful mission because we got who we were going after. The other bird didn't make it all the way back because they had to like land, quote unquote, at another base because they took so many rounds, so their bird was deadlined. But they made it out, you know what I mean? So they had to swap birds and stuff like that. And that was the last mission of that deployment. And we were like, I say we call it, right? We still had like a week. So sometimes you may get another one. And we were like, I say we call it. That's it. And then we had 9 lives. We just used all of them. And then I remember a few days later, they were like, we have another mission. And we were like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, our luck is gone, dude. And they were like, no. And this mission, they're like, it was just, even from the get-go, the way it was being briefed, we're like, dude, this is terrible. This is an awful idea. The way it is, like, we're going to get smoked on infill and this and that. And then luckily, like, literally the grace of God or something, because we're like, okay, exfil or, you know, SP is this time. We're going. And everyone's like, I don't like this one. I don't like it. Grace of God, all of a sudden there's weather. And they're like, the bird's like, we can't fly. There's weather. You know, and the weather, and then the combination of, they said the weather and the lack of birds that they had from the last mission getting eaten up, they couldn't fly. So they're like, all right, well then I guess we're done for the deployment. And everyone was like, hallelujah. Okay, that was grace of God saved us on that one. And it's funny because it's like, you know, the war at this point had been going on for 14 years, and that was the most eventful deployment I had. 14 years into the war, you know. So we get back, do another training cycle. I'm getting ready to get out. I've done everything I've wanted to accomplish. So I felt secure in knowing that I could get out. Like everything when I was 19, 20, wanted to join the Army, like these are what I want to do. I had done all of it. So I was comfortable, talked it with my wife, and I was going to get out. And we had one last mini deployment left for like 30 days. So we go over, and we're really only doing like one target out there. And it's another remain over day, a 3-day thing. We're just on kind of on a Overwatch site. Cool. And they're like, all right, what are you packing? And I remember I was like, I'm packing 3 pounds of protein powder. And they're like, well, I'm like, I'm trying to make gains while I'm out here. I need as much protein and food as I can get. I had like 3-pound bag of protein powder, like stuffed in my kit, and like all sorts of snacks and lickies and chewies and stuff. But we're out there. They're like, hey, here's all these sandbags. You guys got to fill these sandbags. And it's dark out, and I'm filling sandbags for hours. And like they're stacked up at this point, like 3 high. Like we're good. We're like, all right, we're comfortable with this. We're good. And I still had a stack of sandbags, and I was like, oh, fuck it. And I just threw them over the other edge of the sandbag. And it's covered at night, so I'm like, oh, they probably went away, whatever. So we swap out, and it's my turn to rest for 4 hours. And my squad leader at the time, he's going to go out, and it's his turn to be out there. And he's out there with my platoon sergeant. And all you hear is our platoon sergeant like, oh, looks like someone didn't want to fill all their sandbags. And I guess the sandbags I thought I threw off the side just sat right there. And there's like 20 of them just sitting there. And he's like, grabbed my squad leader. He's like, let's fill these sandbags. And I'm like, oh, and my squad leader is looking back at me, and he's like, you motherfucker. And I'm like laughing. He's cracking up, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, dude, you screwed me so bad with that one. But that was a short deployment. And then time came for me to get out. And they were like, hey, you're either you're gonna be a squad leader or getting out. Like, we can't promote you if you're gonna get out. And I was like, I'm getting out. I'm good. So I did everything I wanted to accomplish. And that's a big thing too, is I had a talk with my first sergeant. He's like, I know guys who get out before they're ready. They think they're ready to get out. And then they end up still wearing clothes like they're in battalion and hiking boots and all this stuff because they never gave it up. And they, so that was a big thing to me, is that I was like, I'm comfortable. Like, I'm good. I'm comfortable. I did everything I wanted to do. I'm ready to get out and separate, and it was a hard decision because it's all I knew for years. And no one prepares you for when you do get out that, like, so I got out, I got my plaque from my platoon, like did my goodbyes, all that. And then I went home, and then I like went to bed, and then I woke up the next day and there was no work. So the first morning I woke up when I was out of the Army, it was just weird because I didn't have anything to do. Like, I was so used to the past 6 years, I had a schedule, a set schedule, and, a regimented structure. And now I had nothing. And I didn't know what to do. I was kind of like, but that scene in Talladega Nights, like, I don't know what to do with my hands right now. Like, that was me. And I was kind of like, well, I'm just going to take some time and do whatever, So I just hung out and spent time with my wife and stuff. And I knew I was going to start contracting, but it was going to take a few months to roll my security clearance over in order to go work for that company and get a date to go to the whole like selection for that and stuff like that. I got out in, February, and I didn't actually go until June to go to a course for that. So I had like 4 or 5 months that I wasn't doing anything. And it was about after a month, even my wife was like, you need to find something to do. It's just a hard adjustment because, like I said, you go from seeing your best friends all day, every day, having this structure, to you don't see your best friends at all anymore. You don't have that structure anymore. You got to find things for yourself now that really you didn't have time for before. You had hobbies in the military, but it wasn't, it wasn't the same. Actually became lucky, and a guy who was also in regiment was helping run stateside contracting gigs, playing Op 4 for other special operation units. And I got to go do that. And I think that really helped my like mental adjustment, because I'd go for like, 1 week a month, I'd get to go play Army, and with some buddies who had also gotten out from different units and stuff. But it wasn't all the time. It was, maybe 4 days here this month or 5 days here. But I got camaraderie again. And that's really the largest thing I realized that I missed from being in to getting out. I don't care about the gear. I don't care about the guns. I don't care about all that other shit. I care about that feeling of being with your best friends, putting your kit on, getting ready to go lay some hate and put your life on the line with each other. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't until I started doing these like mini role player gigs, getting to basically play Army, that I really realized like that's what I missed, is just hanging out with those guys. And then like we'd go do that, and then we'd be done and we'd go grab a beer, and it would be like guys that I'd never met before, but because they had the same backgrounds, it's like we knew each other for 20 years. People who have never served, like, as much as we want to explain it to them, or I want to share what that feeling's like, until you don't really understand it unless you've had it. That camaraderie feeling, that like real raw, you can't even put it into words what it feels like to get back from a mission in the ready room, blast some music and high five your buddies and just like on cloud 9, you know what I mean? Getting adrenaline rushes with your best friends, doing things that 1% of the 1% people who enlist will ever actually get to see and do. When you get out, you're never going to get that feeling back. And I was finally okay with that when I accepted that it's okay not to have that feeling anymore, right? I'm not going to let so many people that they get out and they're like constantly chasing that over and over and over again. And if you just recognize that it's okay, that you're never going to get that again, but that's a valuable part of your life, and like all those experiences in the military and those friendships, that brotherhood, that's like stuff that, has shaped me into who I am, and I'll carry it for the rest of my life. But it's okay that I'll never get to experience it the same way ever again, And I think that's a valuable lesson a lot of people should take, is that it's okay to let that stuff go and just have it as a revered memory. I started contracting, and it's a much different than being in the military. I thought it was going to be like very much being in the military. It's much different. It's much more like lone wolfing kind of thing. And, you're only gone. I was doing 60 days deployed, 60 days home. And I remember On my first one, my buddy Alinskis texted me one time. He said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that we lost Solis last night." Chris Solis he was in the Ranger Regiment when I was there. He was in SECO as the headquarters platoon sergeant when I was there. He was a master breacher. Then he was in charge of the mortars platoon and stuff. And we trained up together when we went to Mountain Warfare as a company when he was in SECO. He was an awesome dude, fucking great Ranger. But he got killed. And I remember being like, oh, that sucks, and I'm not there anymore. You know what I mean? And we had lost other people from like in other platoons or other companies, you know what I mean? And like buddies I had in car accidents and things like that. But this was like the first guy, even in that whole time, I was lucky that we didn't lose people out of our platoon or our company when I was there. You know what I mean? Other companies weren't as lucky. We were. So this one, I wasn't there. I was gone already, I get back from that contracting deployment and they have his memorial service. So I attend that back at the battalion after they get home from deployment. And I remember I'm getting my hair cut. At the barber's shop, I saw Solis' wife and his daughter in there. I wanted to go tell them, oh man, I'm sorry for your loss. It was such an honor to know your husband. He was an awesome, awesome man and Ranger, and your father was amazing. But then I was like, oh, well, maybe they don't want to hear that right now. I don't know. And I didn't tell them. And like to this day now, I regret not telling them that. And it's not about like me or anything like that, but I regret telling them that because I imagine that like my wife and kid would have loved to hear something like that about me if I had gone away, And I just want to use that as a message to other people. Don't be afraid to tell people or their family members that you're proud of their family members, or that, it was honor. You had the pleasure of knowing someone that they were alive or dead, I wish I had told his wife and kid that, So if they ever see this, just know that a pleasure to know him for what I did. I wasn't as close with him as other people. All the interactions I got to have with him were amazing. He was a great dude. And that he ended up posthumously getting awarded the Medal of Honor, which obviously they don't just give out, So he really good dude and lasting legacy on the regiment. Well, the mission was 2018, but I don't know. It was like a year or so later, it got upgraded from a Silver Star. Contracting is a lot different than being in, because guys are there. You are there for money, and there's nothing wrong with that. I felt, my conscience was fine with it. That's what you're doing, but you're still supporting, what you believe in as far as the cause and all that stuff. But it's a lot different. Like you have your living situation's a lot nicer. The food's a lot nicer and stuff like that. But I made great friends contracting too that I wouldn't have met if I hadn't done it. Guys from other branches, guys from SF, or friends with SEALs and MARSOC guys and Marine Raider, like guys you never would meet but interact with that I still talk to because they're awesome people, but you met them through doing this contracting thing. Eventually it took a toll on like my personal life, my marriage and stuff like that, because I was gone more contracting than I was in battalion, from 60 days on, 60 days off to maybe 70 days gone, 50 days home, you know what I mean? And it really came down to like getting sucked into, I kind of lost myself for a while doing it, because all I wanted to chase then was like money, material goods, like all sorts of things like that. Really stopped placing value on like what was more important, like back home, So it was almost like the deployments on contracting were like a vacation away from having to actually live real life. You're not training up with all the guys you're contracting with, you know what I mean? You'll work with them for 60 days and then they'll go home to their lives, you go home to your lives. Whereas in the battalion and all that, live, breathe, sleep with these same guys year in, year out, day in, day out. And so the camaraderie level is much, much higher. Yeah, that camaraderie level is untouchable as far as especially being in the regiment like that, where it's such a high tempo, the level of expertise you're supposed to have and do, like it's how much you have to trust each other and stuff like that. It's untouchable, the camaraderie that you're going to get in that. Kind of worked out well for me with the way the pandemic happened in 2020, because I was done contracting and I just took the year off and everything was kind of shutting down anyway. So I spent that whole year with my wife and kids, like reconnecting with them and like really regaining my sense of like purpose at home as a husband and a father that I'd kind of lost because I was so concerned with like externally. It's like, oh, look at all this stuff I'm doing. Isn't that badass? But I'm not showing up at home. So I'd rather my wife and kids, I think they'd rather have me at home than show, the external world. They're like, oh, he's doing all this stuff, and look at I'm bringing home all this money to do that, but what good is it? You know what I mean? If I'm not actually showing up at home as a wife, it's not showing up at home for my wife as a husband or my kids as their dad. So that whole year was amazing in 2020 for my family. I know it was tough on a lot of people, and I have sometimes a hard time reconciling that. Like, that was one of the best years of my life because I reconnected with my wife so good and my kids. I had always wanted to be a soldier, and I'd always wanted to be a fireman. Like I said before, I dropped out. I was in school to be EMT and stuff like that. I was going to be a fireman, but I was so young and immature that it was never going to happen. You know, the Army, I needed the Army, to be honest. I needed the Army more than the Army needed me. And the Army gave me my purpose in life and my direction, my discipline, like everything I have now as far as like moving forward in life and being structured, I got from the military. Finally, the local fire department was hiring. I applied and got on, went to the fire academy, and now I've been a firefighter for a little over 3 years with them. And it's much different than being in the military because there is camaraderie for sure, but it's a different type of camaraderie. It's not the exact same level, but it's, to be honest, for people looking for it, it's about as close as it's going to get for me that I have found. The guys I work with on my crew, I work with the same 3 guys, you know, me and 2 other guys every third day. And I've had that same crew for a year. So I've spent a third of my life with these people. So time does start adding up, and then you do start building that camaraderie, you know, and it's a big difference though, because the fire department is so defensive. Like, you're not going out on target or going after people. People are calling you for an emergency, you know? And one of the guys who actually was a former Army Ranger in my department, he told me when I was new, he's like, you need to remember that no matter what, like, it's not your emergency. And that was a big thing for me to think about. He's like, because people get so worked up and they want to do all this stuff. These people are already having an emergency. They don't need you adding to their stress and doing it. It's not your emergency. Do everything the way you've been taught, calm, cool, and collected, and you're going to be fine as a fireman, you know, whether that's in a structure fire, cutting someone out of a car, whatever it is. You know, and in like my first year, I kind of like got to run the gamut of like stuff you see as a fireman, like, you know, we had put out a fire, cut someone out of a car, birth a baby, like all this stuff. And it was like bam, 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 like CPR and like all this stuff, you know. And I was like, holy crap. And they were joking. My wife's like, you've literally run the gamut of like what a fireman does in a year, you know. But I love it, and I get a lot out of it, which is important. And I think for people that were in the military, whatever career you choose afterwards, you have to make sure you choose one, not necessarily from your career, but you need something in life that is going to give you some purpose, because there's going to be a hole. It is what it is. And you may never be able to fill it perfectly. You know, I can't fill the missing piece of the military, and like, I can't go back in time and relive those memories, right? I'll never be able to fill that hole perfectly, but there are things that I can do now that give me purpose, that make me feel whole, you know? So being a fireman, serving people, like whatever hobbies people have and things like that, being for me, you know, a father and physical fitness and all that kind of stuff. And I'm on a huge path now of like self-development and becoming the best version of myself. And, you know, they say in the regiment, they would tell us, whatever decision you want to make, I want you to hold your tambourine in one hand and that choice in the other and see which one weighs more. If that choice weighs more than your beret, you shouldn't fucking be here anyways. Your beret should weigh more. So now I tell guys, especially as I start, you know, motivational speaking to athletic teams and things like that, and as I want you to hold, you know, your position, whatever you're doing on the team, in the community, as a husband, as a father, and weigh that against whatever choices you want to make. The choices over here should always weigh more on being the best husband, father, man, teammate, whatever it is you can be, should always outweigh that personal dopamine rush you're chasing over here on the side. But that's where I am today. And I want to spread a message of leadership and teamwork to teams, corporate, athletic, and keep traveling and being able to just help people embrace being the best version of themselves and finding purpose. For anyone who wants to find me, they can find me on Instagram at AlexAguilar_TRM. TRM stands for the Revived Man. That's a thing I started as far as helping men out for the purpose of becoming revived to be their best version of themselves. For all the veterans out there, I just want to say that just because you don't carry the title of soldier anymore doesn't mean you can't be of service. There are plenty of ways you have service and value to give to the world, both professionally and personally. And anytime it feels like, you know, all your skills are useless, I promise you, there are so many ways out there that you can apply military skills to the real world. You just have to find them.